Mrs. Ruby Merlot here to introduce my video. A bit out of my comfort zone, but a pleasant surprise of a pour. Enjoy, won't you? I am Mrs. Ruby Merlot. As a cultural, colorful pouring icon, I dress for every pour as one would naturally dress for dinner. I channel my muse with a quick vocal exercise, then ask my canvas what it wants to be. And now that you know my story, shall we pour? As is my wont, I begin with a vocal exercise, colorful centipede pour. Then I ask my canvas what it wants to be. Gracious viewers, so good to have you watching. I begin this paint pour blowout by pouring a puddle of house paint onto my canvas. Then I start applying the colors using my antique aperitif glasses and the golden crystal pineapple swizzle sticks my great aunt was given by Georgia O'Keeffe after the artist traveled to Hawaii to paint a pineapple, or so the story goes. Just as a chemist mixes creative concoctions to arrive at a breakthrough, so have I been pursuing my own defining moment of paint pouring achievement by trying unusual combinations of paint and additives, many suggested by various paint pour colleagues. While this particular combination fell far from the tree of desired results, its yield is perhaps equally attractive. Certainly, manipulating the paint feels much different, as you will soon see. Here is the plastic tubing I will use to blow the white across the colors. It's unattractive, but so useful. See how the paint almost pulls back as it's being blown? A completely different reaction. With some of the additives, as with the house paint, air bubbles are apt to form, and the additives make it unwise to use my torch to eradicate them. So I poke them with what my cook calls a skewer. Again, not so very chic, but extremely functional. As I begin to stretch out the paint, I clearly see the image of a centipede. Do you see it? With his legs splayed across the canvas, he almost slithers as I tilt. The centipede reminds me of my son Maxwell's wife, Brandy, with an I. Oh no, not that she looks like a centipede, but that she's trying to attract caterpillars. Centipedes, caterpillars, practically the same thing. In any case, the poor girl has taken up gardening. Can you imagine it? Fingers in the dirt, shoveling soil. I ask you, what does one do with one's gardener? And my Maxwell is even helping her. To entice these caterpillars, they've decided to plant some weed. Oh, what's the name? These young people. Oh yes, milkweed, as she is a butterfly aficionado, and the caterpillars like to consume this weed. They said they could plant some of the weed in my yard, too. Outrageous! Even my gardener wouldn't stoop to that. It should be outlawed. Perhaps I'll just have to make a present of this painting to Brandy. I'll tell her it reminds me of her. I make sure to touch up all the corners with my palette knife. Sometimes more tilting is needed after that step to blend the touch-ups into the rest. And I scrape the bottom edges with the knife to prevent drips from building up and from pulling paint off the canvas. The close-ups, bold, bright splashes of color, engaging patterns, and a motion and composition that is so pleasing to one's eye. And here it is, on display next to an extraordinary anniversary present given to Mr. Merlot and me. And yes, it was from Brandy and Maxwell. Please consider subscribing to my channel. I would deem the gesture to be in the very best of taste.